Welcome to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it is Your Impact Attack. The VBC is back in the saddle for another one. And who is that? Who the hell's the VBC? Well, that would be probably myself. Jamie Williams would be the V because people know me as the vet around here. Tag team partner B for Brandon. Tagging in. Brandon, how's it going?
It is going super, sir. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
Super as well. Maybe not as super as Big Gay Al, but pretty super. Um, and the C is the chat, and there used to be a Colin, but now it's the chat. And sometimes Colin's in the chat, but we don't double up on the C's if he's in the chat. He's just part of the chat now. That's all that he is. But speaking of the chat, who do we have with us on this fine evening?
Let's see who we have on with us on this fine Monday. We got Lab Rat, Chris Winland, Jerome Hall, Lisbeth, Retro Rocket Review, and Al Robinson. How you guys doing? Thank you for stopping in. Much love to you. Whoop, whoop.
All right. So we got some people in the house. And Chris Winland has an interesting question. We could start with this. So, what was your favorite moment during each of your wrestling careers, respectively? That's a very, very interesting question. To who I don't know. I guess Chris Winland. But what would you say, Brandon, was your favorite moment? I mean, that's I guess that implies like personally, right? Like your person, like it may not be the biggest thing or the most over thing you ever did, but just a moment that for you is a favorite memory. What would that be for you, or if you have a couple?
For sure would be when I got to actually work a program and feud with who at the time was my best friend.
Mm-hmm. And how was that? Like, what kind of you don't have to go into the entire thing, but just a little bit of maybe like an overview of what you guys did and why that stands out as a favorite memory.
It ended up concluding in a mask versus hair match where I was, and the start of the feud ended up being where, like, it was acknowledged our friendship, and he used to wrestle under a hood or knew somebody who wrestled under a hood, but it was actually him it was actually him, or he did two gimmicks at the same time or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, we acknowledged our friendship, and then he was kind of horrified with me, or the first thing that kicked it off was I had a match with another guy who wore a mask, and I ripped his off, and then his tag team partner ran with a towel to cover him, and my friend was angry at me for doing that, and it led to us kind of just going back and forth, and then to the mask versus hair match.
All right. Well, did you take his mask?
No, I ended up cutting my hair, but that was about 7 years ago, so I've had plenty of time to grow it back.
I see. All right. It's cool when you get to when you get to actually bring something to fruition, instead of having the usual, we see this all the time, even in the highest level of starts and stops, and actually getting to live up to the potential of what your character is doing. This Friday, Roman Reigns, LA Knight got to be in the same ring, and it's taken him how long to get that after just, even months or even weeks ago, he was doing jobs or even, like last year being Max Dupree. And, so it's cool when you get to do something good.
Speaking of which, did you hear the news that kind of came out of that thing from the stream with Masse and what's the other guy?
Mansoor,
yeah. Mansoor, yeah.
No.
He apparently, or LA Knight hated the gimmick and threatened to leave the company if they kept him in it.
Wow. Is that the first time a threat has ever worked like that?
Well, I think at the time it might have been Triple H in charge. He's like, "Don't worry, I'll get you out of this."
Yeah, because that's when it happened. It was the first time McMahon stepped away that he was able, that all of a sudden, the next week he's like, "I'm out of here" on TV. So the timeline adds up. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're. So
I
for
was just
me,
I was
oh,
just
go ahead.
shocked they made him a manager because it's like, I mean, obviously the guy can talk, but it's like he's got plenty of time still left in the ring.
Just it's time to just put that senile old man out to pasture. It's shit like that is the reason why you can't, you know, he's got nothing to offer anymore. Um,
Like maybe as like somebody you go to where it's like, hey, I'm having trouble with this. What do you think? Something like that, maybe, or just somebody to like a mentor, somebody you go to if you're stuck at something, or somebody to give you advice, but not like the guy steering the ship.
yeah, yeah. Well, at this point, I couldn't even agree with the other thing. It's just get him out. It's done. It's a wrap.
I mean, I
Um,
mean, if you're doing anything with him, I think the dude should be at home just resting and enjoying the whatever's left of his life.
right. Well, yeah. I don't care if he enjoys anything in his life. Fuck him. So as for me, my favorite moment, some people might think that it would be the whole WrestleMania thing, which I talked about. Vince McMahon's creation to be a part, to be a part of his creation, inject a lethal dose of poison into it. Not really, but for anybody that doesn't know, yeah, I did some extra stuff at WrestleMania. They needed people to be photographers and paparazzi for Eminem, and they also needed druids for the Undertaker because at WrestleMania 23 that year, he and Batista had a match for the World Championship. So
Which I thought was one of Batista's better matches.
it was at the time, and they were proud of it. And there was a thing where they really felt like, the competitiveness with Raw and SmackDown, uh, as a shoot, in terms of their professional, performances, they both felt like, they had some pride in their particular show. I don't think that exists these days, but
Well, I think part of that too was the fact that the Undertaker won the Royal Rumble and they were not main eventing WrestleMania. So Harry's kind of had a bit of a chip on their shoulder, where
hmm,
it's like, okay, we'll show you why we should be the main event.
that too. But yes, as we know, the main event was Shawn Michaels and John Cena. Um, and look, in with all due respect to everyone involved, I mean, if we're just talking about in retrospect, looking back, which match should have closed the show, if you're talking about a main event level epic match, the Cena and Michaels one was way better than Batista and Undertaker. Even I don't care how hard they worked or how much they thought they deserved to be in it. But as we know, just having a good match doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna, you get to close the show. And nobody would have known how good the match was or wasn't before they had it. So anyway, they did what they did. It was a cool moment. A lot of memories from that day. Um, Donald Trump was there, a bunch of people just milling around backstage, and you being in that perpetual purgatory of like you're you're there as a some professional capacity, so you can't just talk to people or be a fan, and but the other time you're not over enough to be a colleague, so you kind of just have to pick your spots. So I kind of just tried to shake hands with whoever I couldn't avoid, and and not bother anybody too much. Um so it was an interesting and a stressful day, but actually going out there, I didn't even have time to concentrate on, you know, anything else like the magnitude of the situation, the size of the crowd, or anything like that, because all I had to concentrate on was this torch I was holding, and I could barely see through the hood, so I didn't want to set anybody on fire or get set on fire myself. So all I was thinking about, don't set anybody on fire, and get to the back safely, and everything went off fine. Um, and it was actually, when you go back and watch WrestleMania 23, it's a cool looking entrance. It's one of his cooler entrances. The way the stage was set up. Um, so so that was cool, and everything. But in many ways, you know, being there, being backstage, and this is the biggest show of the year, and this is what everybody's getting to, and in many ways it was also the one of the, I don't know what you want to call it, like the straws that broke the camel's back, or just one of the things that was like a deciding factor, to for me to sort of step away and just sort of retire. It's just like you know, being there was just like, this is it. This is it, huh? This doesn't feel altogether dissimilar from even the OVW locker room. It's, even at the highest level, it's still just a bunch of people waiting around and bullshitting, and you know, like there's a lot of other people working hard, you know, like running around trying to get stuff done. People that will never know their names, people that the Warrior Award was created to honor. But as far as wrestlers are concerned, it just seems like another day. The catering wasn't even that good.
Ooh.
So yeah. So in many ways I was like, this is it. It was kind of like that. So that was really not my favorite moment. My favorite moment was, there were two guys, um that I train with, and one of them was, so these two guys were like a tag team, I guess, and it was, the tag team was the Sonic Fang, because there was a guy named that he called himself Fang. He kind of looked like, he looked like, he was really small and skinny, and he sort of painted his face like Sting, and you know, had the tights like Sting and everything. The other guy, Sonic, was literally Sonic the Hedgehog. He had a like a bodysuit and a mask. He had this cool mask made that had the hedgehog spikes on it, like in a mohawk thing. Obviously, he could never monetize this in in any meaningful fashion, but uh yeah. So these were two guys that you look at them and it's like, yeah, they're never gonna be on a stage like that, or at least at that time that's how I felt. But um but they were both great guys, and they were both good in the ring, and all we wanted, as my tag team, the Army of Two, wanted to have a match against them at one of our monthly shows, one of our monthly house shows, or whatever it was that we sell the tickets. So they, you know, we couldn't really book ourselves. So what we would do is, every training session when it was promo time, you know, we get our 1 minute promo or whatever, and we would try to book ourselves in the angle with the Sonic Fang in the promo. So we would talk about, like, you know, going to his house and kicking the shit out of Fang in front of his family and all the stuff that we did, you know, like we're trying to provide the backstory for this, and everything. And we're trying to get the people to be like, hint, hint, come on, you got two tag teams, put us together, come on. And, you know, it's all we wanted. So back and forth, we would do promo battles, and yes, and each other, and the ridiculous stuff that we were saying to try to lead up to it. And finally, um, you know, we go to one of the shows, the um the amateur shows. They called it. That's what we referred to it as, probably because that's what Jim Cornette disdain referred to them as, those fucking amateurs, the amateur shows. And so we finally show up for one of those, and when we talk to, I guess you guys would know him if you watch the wrestlers on Netflix, Adam Revolver, right? He was doing some of the booking then, like as far as, Rip put him in charge of setting up some of the matches, That's how he got his start, is him being one of the guys that would be an example for the class. Like a Rip would use him to demonstrate things or whatever. So, but he also gave him that experience of like, all right, put a card together, and this is who sold this and this is who sold that, and put them up, put them together. So finally, we got to he put our name up against the Sonic Fang, so we were able to finally have the match. So we talked about it with him. We laid the whole thing out. At least we laid out the part that needed to be laid out, and I don't like to plan every little last move. So, but anyway, we go in there and we had the match, and it was the best match. It felt the best. How you go in the, you probably done this before, Brandon. If you ever had a match and you're out there and you're like in real time, you're like, oh my God, this is dying. This is dead. This is the shits. Everybody hates this. No one's going to like this. And then you go back and watch it later and you're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I just felt like it was worse than it was, right? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, there's several of those.
Right. It's never as bad as you think it is. And you're rarely in the ring and you're like, yes, this is perfect. I love everything about what's going on right now. It's always like a level of stress and, hypercriticalism in the moment and whatever. But this was a match where I was like, yes, this is working. This is exactly what I want. The crowd is into it. Someone had brought like a giant stuffed Sonic doll, like one of the novelty size that you would win at the fair or something like that. They had Sonic the Hedgehog doll in the audience. And yeah, so they made a great comeback, and we put them over, and it was easily my favorite match that I ever had. It was my favorite moment that I ever had, because we finally got to do it. Much like you were saying, you had a program that you followed and you were able to see it through to the end. And then, anytime we got to work with those guys, it was great, which wasn't much. The only other time we got to work with the Sonic Fang was, the interesting story behind that was, like, I was out of town. So I got picked up from the airport, and I'm lacing my boots in the back seat of the car on the way back from the airport, and we get to the arena just in time to talk to Sonic Fang for like a minute and go over a couple of things, and we called the whole thing out there, and it was not it wasn't as good, I thought, as the first one, but it was still pretty good, and it was easy to work with those guys, and that was the most fun I ever had wrestling a match, because of those circumstances. The one of being able to build it yourself, even though the only people that knew about it was the boys, like none of the fans knew any of the backstory. His family didn't know that we had kicked the shit out of Fang in front of them, like they didn't know that. So unless he told them, but I mean, but yeah, so it was just cool to do that and to finally get to do it what we wanted. And then it was cool to know that you could just go in there and call a 10-minute match on the fly with no prep. Just do it right off the plane. Not even, really warmed up or anything. Just that was, I think those would be my favorite moments, is what I would say. So yeah. So there you go. But yeah, so in any case, Good question from Chris Winland, who you can see on the PWC, doing reviews from time to time. He's getting figured in now. You're figured in, boy. Um, so congratulations to Chris. Um, and we all know we love the PWC, Jimmy T, Chris Ams. A lot of work with them. Get to do wreckage every Sunday. Chris wasn't with us this Sunday, but it's all right. We did fine. But that's kind of his show, so I enjoy going along with the ride, instead of driving sometimes. It's nice. I don't have to necessarily make a list of notes. But you, Brandon, have made a punching up impact because these motherfuckers need to be taught a lesson. Isn't that right?
Indeed. Leading up into Bound for Glory, I'm going to redo the entire build up to it. And it's going to feature a lot more Moose.
I think we can all agree that is the thing to do.
Shit, I've lost count of how many times I had Moose appear on camera.
That's good. I like to hear that. Starting off strong before we even started. Too much Moose. No such thing. But
never get enough Moose. All right, so this is going to be starting with the first Impact coming off of the 1000th episode. This will be the edition that aired on 9/28/23. We started off with our recap and catch-up packet, and then the intro, Pyro and Ballyhoo. Go to the announce table, talk about recent events, and then we go to an in-ring with Moose and Myers. Moose music and entrance with Myers in the briefcase. Moose says that he will cash in his shot at some time before now and Bound for Glory. He wants to turn Impact Wrestling into his own personal playground for his amusement, and it starts tonight. But first he says there's some buzzkills that have to be eliminated, and then he attacks Myers, spears him, and leaves him laying.
Oh my goodness, that bastard Moose. I love it.
Then we cut to the announce table. They talk about what just happened, and they throw it to the ring for the first match, which is a Knockouts Tag Team Titles match. MK Ultra versus the Death Dolls. We got Death Dolls music and entrance, MK Ultra music and entrance. MK Ultra goes over when Crazy Steve comes out and distracts the Death Dolls. During the match, announcers mention that Moose versus Myers has been made for later in the evening. And then post-match, Steve tells the Death Dolls that he's been talking with him and that he will be back soon.
So it's Carmelo Hayes. He's talking to Carmelo Hayes. Got it.
Indeed.
And was Moose the special referee for that women's match? Just because if he wasn't.
Let's say he was.
All right. Yeah. All right. It's his personal playground after all.
And then you go to our first commercial break. Then we come back to a backstage segment with the Death Dolls where they talk about Steve's recent actions and they speculate on who he might be. Backstage, we go to Tasha and Deanna. We have the same promo that we saw on the show. And then match 2 is Rhino versus Jack Price. Same thing we saw on the show with that. And then backstage, we got Gia and Alex Shelley. Same promo on the show, but except here we have Shelley versus Alexander made official for Bound for Glory. And then Moose walks into the shot and he stirs the pot between Alex Shelley and Josh Alexander.
I would also like if I could be so bold, I would have Moose take the microphone from Gia and say that she'll no longer be needed the rest of the night and he'll be conducting the backstage interviews.
At the very least for this one, that would have been interesting. That actually would have made this segment better. If he would have basically said, I got this, and interviewed Shelley.
Yep. Hit the bricks, Gia.
No, actually, I would not. On your suggestion, I would change it to that.
All right. We're doing it. It's all Moose all the time.
All right, so then we go to our second commercial break. Then we come back to backstage, Eddie Edwards and Alicia. That promo that goes the same way as it does on the show with Frankie Kazarian showing up and interrupting. Then you go to match number 3, Giselle Shaw versus Trinity. And then Trinity up after botched interference from the Shaw Tourage. And then Shaw finally fires Jay and Evans.
Oh no. Now what are they gonna do?
Tune in next week.
Okay.
And then backstage, we have the same promo with Bully and Macklin that goes like it does on the show, except that when they leave the shot, the cameraman notices Josh Alexander is on the ground unconscious, and he calls for help before we go to our third commercial break.
Oh yes. This is a very Impact move where the guy is like 2 feet away and then nobody notices until the camera moves over.
Well, to be fair, I don't think Bully and Macklin would care,
They wouldn't care.
which is
And
why
I
actually,
guess they're
which is actually why I put it in that segment, because there'd be the lines be like, "Fuck him."
everyone assumed they just did that.
And then we come back from commercial with Josh Alexander being helped into the ambulance, and D'Amore is getting into the ambulance with him. And go to our fourth match, Dreamer and Heath versus King and Sheldon. Same match that we see on the show. And then we go to a backstage segment with the ABCs, which is the same promo we saw on the show. And then match number 5, Moose versus Myers. Myers music and entrance, and Moose jumps him during his entrance, and it's just an absolute obliteration. Moose destroys Myers and beats him before we go to our fourth commercial break.
Mm.
And then come back with Moose. Gia asks him his thoughts on what happened to Alexander. He says it's a shame and that he'll be watching Chris Sabin's X Division title defense later tonight in the main event. And then we go to match number 6, Jonathan Gresham versus Mike Bailey, which is the same match you saw on the show, because that's actually one thing that's going correctly that they're doing.
Yes, and no Moose is necessary to spice this up.
No, they got this covered. And then
although we could have Moose come in and tell Gresham, it's like, I like the way you think now, or something like that. Wouldn't hurt.
No, that's not a bad idea. In fact, let's actually have that segment in the back where you see Gresham coming to the back. Moose congratulates him, says, "Did a good job. I like your thoughts." That's how you do. That's what you do to win. That's how you get ahead. I'm watching you. I like what I'm seeing.
Maybe one day you'll make it in this business, kid.
And then we go to our in-ring with the Yuya goodbye ceremony. Except that they have their music and entrance. They do the ceremony, except they're get interrupted by the Rascals, who lay them out and spray paint them with no match.
Well, we got to fire them now.
And then we go to our fifth and final commercial break. Backstage, Sabin is getting ready for his match. Moose once again reiterates to Sabin he has his back. And we go to our New Japan hype video. Go to the announce table where they run down the card for next week's show. Match 7, our main event, X Division Championship, Chris Sabin versus Alan Angels. Angels music and entrance, Sabin music and entrance. We do the spot where Angels hits his kick, Sabin kicks out. Angels rolls to outside to grab a chair. Moose stops Angels, spins him, spears him, and then rolls him into the ring. Sabin doesn't know what happened. He hits his finisher and goes over. Moose raises Sabin's hand, and show goes off the air with confused Sabin being congratulated by Moose.
All right. Well, firstly, I like the Moose. And secondly, I'm finished. I have no more notes.
Basically, the whole idea is Moose is kind of trying to fuck with Shelly, like getting involved with his relationships and just sticking his nose in like anything that involves the title.
Sure. Well, and you can take this approach of like, I'm about to officially run this place, so I might as well start running it now. Especially if our if our actual showrunner is going to jump in the ambulance at the drop of a hat every time somebody gets a splinter, like you have him cut these type of promos, saying that if I have to be Scott D'Amore around here, I'll be happy to, because I'm going to run every other damn thing. You can hear Moose saying these things, right? So it would be an interesting this is one of those things where like Impact is small enough seeming of an operation, even on television. Like the way they do it is seems like so mom and pop that you can actually get away. Like when Judgment Day comes and says they run Monday Night Raw or whatever, you're like, you're just some wrestlers. And same thing with the Bloodlines. Like we run, Roman Reigns runs everything. It's like, well, do you really? I
Right.
mean,
You got a whole board you have to answer to.
right. There's a lot of things going on here, and this place looks pretty big, and you're just a wrestler. When Moose says, or for anybody for that matter, anybody that's like they decide they want to single-handedly take over Impact, and then you got Scott D'Amore just leaving the building, it's like now it's possible. So you you could definitely have that thing where a guy thinks that he's big enough of a deal that he can do it, whether or not he can. That's what makes him a heel, because people are going to see the audacity in that, but it could make for some interesting TV.
Or do something where Moose buddies up with like Scott's bosses.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to go that far, sure. You can take it any number of directions, but instead, as we'll see very soon, it seems like they're just content to spin their wheels and do the least interesting thing. And then anytime that they put any effort into something, it seems like almost misguided. So,
Although I do have
um,
a twist on where it goes at Bound for Glory.
a twist, you say? Well, I guess I will tune in next week. But when is Bound for Glory? Is that this weekend or next weekend?
It is this Saturday.
God damn it! I don't want to watch that shit. All right. Well, anyway, yes, I guess we'll find out on the next episode of the Impact Attack. We'll find out the twist leading into Bound for Glory.
Oh, it would happen at Bound for Glory.
The twist leading at Bound for Glory. We're gonna cover Bound for Glory anyway, so it's gonna be on the next episode no matter what. Please look forward to it. But in the meantime, we're at now, which was then, and we'll go to it. So this episode of Impact was on the October. Was it October 12th?
I believe it was. Yes, it was.
All right. So we've got our standard ketchup packet to open, and then we go to Swanahan versus the Rascals. All right.
And for real, if you guys have not seen the movie Black Sheep, you have to watch it. You have to. That shit is funny as fuck.
That's right. It's the Tommy Boy movie that wasn't Tommy Boy. It was Black Sheep, but still basically Tommy Boy. They could have made it a damn sequel. All they would have had to do change a couple little things around.
Yeah, it was basically like the same premise, just like, or the same like foundation, just a different story surrounding it.
That's right. Now the Rascals, on the other hand, while I'm sure they got high and watched Black Sheep, they are not Black Sheep. They are the Rascals. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna. They had their match. You can imagine how the match went, and then, so then they do the spot where Zachary Wentz has grabbed Rich Swann, and then Trey goes to spray him with the because the referee got distracted somehow, right, or knocked down, or something. I missed that part. What that happen to the ref at this point that he wasn't seeing this? He was distracted, right? I swear
there was some. They at least tried to cover like having the ref not see it. Tried to.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I remember what it was now. I did actually watch the match. I know it sounds like I don't, and I make fun of the fact that I don't, and I kind of don't, but I do remember what happened. He went to, I think he went and grabbed like a title belt or something else and acted like he was going to use it. and he's like hiding the spray, like Trey is hiding the spray paint behind his back
Yeah.
the whole
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then the ref goes to put the foreign object out. And while he's doing that, they go to spray Rich. Rich ducks and he sprays Zachary in the face.
Basically,
Then,
using the foreign object as the red herring to distract the ref as to use the spray paint.
yes, I'm pretty sure it was one of the builds. And then he goes and yeah, he gets sprayed, and then Swan kicks Miguel out of there, and then they take Zachary and then they hook him up for a spike pile driver. So Swan comes off the top rope and pushes down Zach's heels, and Sammy spikes him, right? And Wentz just kicks out. He just kicks out. 1-2
No,
kick
no,
out. Not
no.
even a
Can't have
no
the partner
delay.
break it up or.
Nope. Trey Miguel was already, he must have been cold cocked by Rich Swan or whatever, or Sammy or whoever took him out. That part I don't remember either.
The only thing I can think of for that to make sense is that because Sammy's leaving, they want to make somebody look strong by kicking out of a double team of his version of his finisher on the way out. That's the only thing I can think of.
Oh yeah, don't think I didn't think of that too, because that's not the only thing. Not only did they do that, where it's like, fuck you, we're kicking out of your shit, your shit plus. It's not just your pile driver that's your finisher. It's your tag team partner jumping off and spiking them, and I'm still kicking out of that onto no problem, no delay, no referee delayed on the count, no, no partner save, like you said, nothing. Just I'm just kicking out like it's just a regular schoolboy. And then Sammy gets a low blow, right? They punch him in the balls. The ref again is not seeing it. And then they do that stupid move they do where they used to, Wentz did this with Desmond Xavier too. He does like a standing moonsault, and then Zachary just like shoves him over in midair so that the moonsault like splashes him. So there's really no point to doing it, but other than it just looks different. And that's
I think I've seen that before. Not from these guys, but I've seen that before.
Yeah. They did it when Wentz was still in NXT and they were the, whatever they were. I already forget their name.
Actually, you know what? I might have seen them do that when they were a trio in Impact.
Yeah, I'm sure they've done it for years. The point is, it's a flashy spot that doesn't look like it's very big of a deal. It's just a moonsault from a guy that doesn't weigh that much. So, a standing moonsault at that, not a top rope moonsault, not a acai moonsault. Just I'm standing next to you. I do a moonsault, and then while I'm in midair, my partner shoves me over so that I float and hit you. Whereas if he didn't shove me, I would just hit the canvas and crash and burn. But it doesn't matter because I'm only 4 feet off the ground.
Yeah, that's one of the moves where it's 100% visual.
Mm-hmm. But you beat Sammy with it because fuck you. You want to leave? Fuck you. Now we say fuck you. Not any of the creative you presented or any of the matches that you had. Now that you want to leave, we're going to say, oh yeah, someone's going to kick out of your super finish and you're going to lose to this shitty move that no one's ever lost to in the history of time.
Another thing about this match, remember when super kicks used to actually end matches instead of stun guys for like a second?
Yes. Sometimes they don't even stun guys for a second. So anyway, yeah, so I just wrote down when I saw that, I was like, well, this is how you go out in Impact. This is when you make it public or somebody makes it public that you're done, you're finishing up with the company. They make sure to make you look as bad as possible. So there you go.
Doesn't make any sense.
I
get doing the job on the way out, but
yeah,
there's a difference between like doing the honors and not making the guy look like shit on the way out.
Right. And they also never do it to anybody that's going to matter either. Like it's it's not going to matter if you lose this tag team match to the Rascals. Like, you're not helping make the Rascals. You're not help getting the Rascals over. It's just you're just a guy they beat. So like, on top of the insult, you're also like not contributing really anything to the company on the way out. You're just getting beat, and that's more important to them. When For me, I think the more important thing would be like, how can I use Sammy if I really want to help get somebody over? How can I use him to help do that? And then I would, well, if it were me, then I would say, okay, well, I picked the wrong guy if I'm looking for help. But, regardless, there's really, and do they, as the kind of marks that you would have to be to even think that way, do you think that, what do you think you're doing? You think you're lowering the stock of this guy for your competition? Like somebody's going to be like, well, I can't sign Sammy. Did you see him lose to that moonsault? I mean, come on. I can't hire him now. He's useless to me. Does anybody think like that?
I think
So what's the point?
that is one of the few benefits of having to be a niche audience, is that they kind of get and understand that, and they just kind of like don't let that bother them. We're like, oh, we're just happy to see this guy over here. And they just completely ignore like the booking beforehand.
I guess we have to. Well, anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Did you have anything to add about the match or any of this?
I forgot what the double down was, but I remembered I put a note on there saying that was the dumbest and most illogical double down that I've ever seen.
Let me think. Double down.
It means I probably wanted to forget it because it was that bad.
Yeah, what'd they do?
Man, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it was bad. It was like so illogical and stupid.
Is it one of those things where they just did moves to each other and then just collapsed?
Man,
like, we ain't selling anything until it's time to just collapse for a double down. Because I see that a lot these days.
I can't remember specifically off the top of my head what it was. All I know is just like watching it, I was just thinking like, this is so stupid and convoluted and makes no sense.
Okay. Well, let's take a break and answer a question or two. Chris Winland says, do you guys think Mickie James will finish her career in WWE joining Nick Aldis there? Sure.
Well, with Nick being there, that I can definitely see that option being on the table. And plus, Johnny Ace is gone. Carano's gone.
The Tapatio mascot is supposedly gone. Yeah, it could happen. It's cool. It's nice to see Nick Aldis there and getting on TV. He'll transition out of that into, some physicality, I'm sure. But this is a good way to start it.
Yeah, my only thing is I wish like WWE would have given more of an introduction to who Nick Aldis was. If I was like a pure WWE fan and I saw him come up on my screen, I'd be like, who?
Who? Well, at least Nick Aldis, whenever you see him, he looks like a somebody. So even if you don't know who he is, you'll feel like you should.
Yes.
So at least that. I didn't like how the you don't get the entrance because he's not going to get the pop, but instead he was all just like, he was sitting there the whole time, and then he just gets up from the floor and gets into the ring on the spot, which he didn't even come out of the back, which that was a little weird. That could have been another reason why the crowd didn't really react to him, because he had already been out there and sitting, waiting.
Right, like if he had gotten an entrance and music, a video, and like Triple H had been kind of like had that card up his sleeve waiting to play the entire night, sure.
Yeah. So that I would have done differently, but whatever. But yeah, I think eventually Mickie will go there, and even if she doesn't actually wrestle anymore, which I'm sure she will, but even if she didn't, just to be like an ambassador, have a role, like, for example, if Nick Aldis does transition into physicality in the ring, how about Mickey James be the GM of SmackDown? Why not? Why not? Tell me one reason why not.
I mean, they're trying to do the whole diversity and inclusion thing. Why not? Exactly.
Why not? Or just because she's a name and a you know, she's a hardcore country. She'll get rowdy if these people get out of line. Um, so yeah, and then the other question: how can I find which hooded guys have at Mania 23? You can't. It's gonna be pretty hard. Even if I told you which one I was, there's nothing that identifies me as that. So you'll just have to pretend that they're all me.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah.
it's true. They did already have actually a couple. They had Stephanie and AJ Lee. I forgot about that.
Yep. Oh, and Vicky Guerrero. I
Oh,
mean,
and Vicky Guerrero. But then again, you can't really count Stephanie because that was, she's a McMahon. You can't really count that.
that's right. So yeah. All right. Well, anyway, back to Impact. So everybody's ducking Kenny King apparently, and I like that he threatens that he's gonna, make it so that all of his kids are gonna be eating beans and sardines and stuff because his dad's not gonna be able to provide for them anymore after Kenny King takes them out. So that's good. Um, any notes for Kenny?
I thought this was one of his better promos. I mean, he just kind of took what he had that was available and made the most of what he had to work with, and
Yeah.
delivered it passionately and believably.
Sheldon said something too, but this was mostly Kenny's promo. So we'll just go with
Notice the
that.
lights, though? All those damn lights.
Yeah, it was kind of, well, I don't know. It was a little more stylized this time, but I'm still not a fan of it. It's something we can work on. I just the ones I hate is where it's clearly a room where you just threw one or two of those on the ground and stuck it right there, and it doesn't really add anything other than distracting from how everything looks.
Yeah, whereas at least in the room where they're shooting it in, it looked like it could have been part of the room on a normal basis, rather than just, hey, we're gonna
Yeah,
set
like
up
if
lights
this was
here.
a club or some other deal, like you could see this being a corner of the room.
The lights looked more organic.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of organic, we transition from one king to another as Kylan King is with Gia and no music underneath. Um, and then she's asking about Taylor Wilde or something, Gia is, or whatever she's asking about. I don't know what she was asking about, but Santino came in and he was like, he was doing some sleuthing and finding it suspicious that she's trying to point the finger at Jody
Jody Threat.
Threat for all the stuff that's been going on, including the attack on her partner. And then she's like, "Oh, so you're trying to say I did it? Because I did do it." So she just admits that she did it, and so she said Taylor was dead weight as soon as they lost the titles. So she's moving on and doing. She had some catchphrase or whatever, I forget.
Long live the king.
Yeah, I don't know how Kenny's gonna feel about that.
We got 2 kings and 2 rushes in the same promotion.
Do you think they just have to get together and have a meeting before every taping? Like, all right, what catchphrase are you gonna use with your king name? Because I was thinking this.
I would sincerely hope they got together and be like, okay, what can we do to make this different from each other?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, what do you think of King being outed as the assailant of her own partner, the People's Witch?
Oh, just too cheap and easy. And it kind of fuels the whole cycle we see with Knockouts tag teams. One forms, they win the belts, they lose them, they break up, rinse, repeat.
Do you think Kylan King should just be fired for admitting that she hit one of her coworkers with a tire iron?
Absolutely. I mean, why shouldn't people in the backstage fear for their lives if she's doing stuff like that?
Yeah, I agree. Um, so next is the five-way match that we got to after the 10-person match last week. And that is going to be the winning team of Eric Young and Jordan Grace, Dango, Jake Something, and Champagne Singh. So, now it's time for one of these people to determine the first in and the last in of the gauntlet, call your shot gauntlet, whatever, whatever. So, you know, it's a five-way match, and then the quote from Tom Hannafin, "What is Oleg Prudius doing here in the Impact Zone?" He actually said that, so he's making fun of it too. Um, and if you don't know who Oleg Prudius is, you're sitting there at home like, Oleg Prudius, who's that? Well, I mean, you know,
And
he's
funny
that guy.
story enough, too, that it was Jerry Jarrett who took him away from TNA to WWE. It's kind of like a fuck you to his son.
Really?
That was what led to their falling out.
Over this fucking guy?
Yep. Because it was more um, like he kind of did it to snub Jeff.
Still, this guy? It was all over this? Not somebody good or useful? Wow. This guy, the Vladimir Kozlov, the I love double E, that guy. That caused a rift.
I will
This
go
guy's
and
the reason there was a rift between his son.
I think that might have. I mean, it was obviously had been building for a while, but I think this might have been the straw that broke the camel's back. I'll have to go and take a look. Hold on one second.
He did Jeff a favor. Well, anyway, while you're looking up that, he ends up, helping Dango get the win. So Dango's going to come out last in the gauntlet thing, and Jake Something gets the pin, so that means, or he eats the pin, so that means he has to go in first and try to survive the whole thing. So great. And neither one of those guys is winning it, so it doesn't matter. Um, but that's who won the match. So was it in fact Oleg Prudius that caused a rift between Jerry, the
Still
late
looking.
Jerry Jarrett? Okay. Well, then how about we go to the Crazy Steve vignette with music underneath? He says he will truly teach Tommy Dreamer about pain and misery. So I assume he's gonna show Tommy Dreamer his own last three matches, and Tommy Dreamer will submit, I think. Um, or he could show him this vignette. Either way, I don't know. Uh, let's see here. What else do we have? We have Eddie, Fat Eddie, and Kazarian are getting ready for their match tonight, which is the main event. Nothing really to say here. They're just warming up.
Yeah,
All right. Do we have
unfortunately,
any more
I've
info?
not able to find too much on that, but I do remember when that happened. That's kind of what just let. I just remember this the whole thing that was when just things blew between Jeff and Jerry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Some commentary about Kenny Omega in the chat. It's his birthday. He turned 40 today. Liz legit thought he was closer to 50. And Retro thinks he grew up and trained with Jericho. And he absolutely did not. I don't even know where you would get that. As a Canadian, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should know the entire biography and life story of every Canadian person. Certainly who's ever wrestled, but pretty much in the country. So you all know each other. It's small enough. should all be well aware of what everyone's doing and the timelines thereof. So Mike Bailey's with Gia and no music underneath. An open challenge. He issues an open challenge to anyone who thinks they're on the level of Osprey. So he's definitely trying to prep for his match at Bound for Glory. And if anybody's on the level of Osprey, that means he's gonna drop somebody on on their fucking head and neck. Then we'll see who they pick. I mean, we get our answer by the end of the night, but I don't really know if that's a good enough warm up. Then we get the next match is Courtney Rush with Jessica, one of the Rushes, versus Tasha Steelz with Deanna. Okay, here's a match. I don't have anything to say about it. Could tell you the finish. But as for the match, I don't really have anything about any notes on the body of the match. It's kind of just what these two do. Did you have anything of note on the actual match itself?
Yes, actually I did. I thought the announcers did a great job of trying to set the background and how Tasha and Deanna actually have a more personal history that goes beyond Impact. I thought they did a great job with that. I thought Courtney Rush actually had pretty bad ring placement on the Irish whip because she, instead of whipping Tasha to the corner from the middle of the ring, she whipped her from one side of the ring to the other, whereas logically Tasha could have easily stopped herself and turned around. And it looked like there's a spot in the match where Rush did her own hot tag and comeback in a singles match. Like, you remember the spot where, like, she went to the corner and she was, like, talking to Jessica, like, she was, like, I was going for a tag. And then all of a sudden, like, it turned into, like, its own hot tag where Rush was hitting her, basically doing her own comeback. Which was very weird that I thought. And let's see, Rush, I remember the spot where Rush had a submission hold on Tasha and she let go of it before Tasha even had a firm grasp of the rope. I don't know, Rush seemed very off this match. That's how it felt to me. Seemed like she was having a bad night.
Well, you think that could be let's see. I don't know. So Tasha is just recently back. I don't see Courtney Rush doing a lot of matches week to week. In fact, if she's not wrestling on BTI or something, I don't know if I'm seeing her at all. So how much is she actually in the ring these days?
Well, also too, we got to think of the indie shows she might be working on, in the non-Impact shows that she's working when they're not taping.
Is she?
Good question.
We don't know, but maybe not if this is the case. And she's, throughout her career, she's had one issue or another regarding injury or even concussions, I believe. So if you're necessarily limiting your ring time because of any physical reasons, then your skills tend to atrophy. So it's tough. You have to keep on working to stay sharp in the ring and even to stay healthy sometimes, because the layoffs in between matches cause you more pain every time you get in there. Like, the ropes hurt more, the bumps hurt more. You have to callous yourself up to it. And if she's not doing that, that's just, I don't know if any of this is true. These are just possible reasons that could explain why it seemed like an off night.
This is all speculation. We don't know.
That's right. Well, here's what we do know. We know that Courtney goes for the spear and Tasha Steelz dodges the spear. And then she hits the cutter and gets the 1, 2, 3. And MK Ultra is watching this backstage on the monitor. Very interested, I guess. So yeah. So Deanna definitely got involved with Jessica at some point, because you got to have them do something if they're going to be out there. But still, Tasha picks up the win, so not too surprising. Any other, you want to put a button on that, or?
Let's put a button. Let's put a bow. Let's move on.
All right. We get a package with Josh and Alex. and I was thinking, like, as I was writing this, Josh and Alex, I was like, were those the characters from Tekken? But it was actually Roger and Alex. Roger was the kangaroo, and Alex was the modified raptor with boxing gloves. So, so
Close
close,
enough.
but not really. Um, they show the thing that happened at the Destruction show in Japan, um, where, because we know the Motor City Machine Guns and Josh Alexander were supposed to challenge for the 6-man never open weight championships. So that would have been Okada, Tanahashi, and Ishii. So they show the clip from that match where Josh goes to hit whoever and then hit Shelley instead, which leads to Tanahashi getting the pin on Alex Shelley. So, you know, the classic, oh my God, I hate you, even though this was clearly the other person ducked and that's why I got hit by you. But I hate you even more now. I think that's the whole point of them showing this clip. Anything to add to that?
I just didn't like. It was all right. Like when they did the part where they showed like him ducking and hitting them, but when they showed like Alexander helping Shelley to the back, and there should have been a lot more tension with that, where Shelley pushed him off, saying "fuck off, you did this to me."
Yeah. Well, he probably hit him so hard he didn't know where he was at the time. All right. Bully talks to Burt Macklin to confirm that he was indeed called soft twice by Macklin. He wasn't sure, but Macklin did confirm that yes, indeed, he did say that Bully Ray is soft. And so Bully is fine with that and walks away.
That came across more like the sarcastic, "Oh, okay, okay," like this ain't over.
Yep. All right. Well, now we're at our main event. It's time for the main event. It is Fat Eddie Edwards versus Heavy Metal Rebel Frankie Kazarian in a Killer Impact match. I know what you're thinking. What the fuck is that?
It is a match that takes up about a third of the show.
That's right. That's because it is a 2 out of 3 falls match, or in other words, in some fashion, it's a 3 stages of hell match, sort of. Because the first match can only be won by pinfall. The second match can only be won by submission. And if it goes to a third fall, it's a last man standing match. Dun, dun, dun. And Liz says again, like, didn't we already have the final match in this stupid feud? No, we didn't. We need 3 more matches in one.
I thought we had a couple of them. I thought we had one when we had the wives involved. I thought we had it when we had the cinematic at the school.
Well, now we have this. And it takes up a third of the show. So get ready for it. All right. Fall number 1. Well, Eddie hits the boss knee party for a win. So 1 fall to Eddie. Fall number 2. Okay. So during this submission match, Eddie was just blistering Kazarian with chops, right? Until which point that Frankie Kazarian started to bleed. And by bleed, I mean he fucking bladed his chest. Did you catch this? Did you see this?
I'm like, that had to have been a blade job, because at one point it stopped bleeding. Like if he was actually like busted open hard way, it would not stop.
It was so, I'm watching this and I probably was doing literal laundry at this point. So I went to fold something and put it away. And then when I look back over, I see Eddie chopping Kazarian and blood's flowing everywhere. And I was like, oh, good for you. Good for you, Fat Eddie.
Right.
You
And
busted him open. And then I rewound it and I was like, which chop did this? And then I see him take a bump to the outside that I rewound it. I actually did rewind it. And I see the spot where he goes to like, he picks him up in like the backdrop and like throws him over the rope. So Frankie lands on the floor. And when he's on the floor, I could see his hand in this shape, which you know what the fuck that means, right? Like who naturally would have their hand like this on the floor?
right. And plus the way the
So
blood was dripping down his chest was just too clean. Like it was, yeah.
so yeah, so so he goes over there and I guess he does as good a job as he can from hiding it, but the camera saw everything, and if you know what you're looking at, you would have seen, like I said, I saw his hand before I ever saw him do anything to himself. And the camera's over there on Eddie trying to, follow him, whatever he's doing, so that
Let's put it, we've all seen what happens to people who actually have their chest turned into ground beef with chops. This was not Frankie's chest.
no, if you don't, first of all, you don't blade your chest, okay?
No. No.
That is not something that you do. It's not a thing. This is not a thing, and Frankie should know that. You don't need to do that. If the guy that's chopping you can't do it, then you don't get to bleed, but it's not going to matter. Like, this was not going to play into the fall in any significant way. It wouldn't play into the match in any significant way. Like, even if you were doing a submission match and you wanted to recreate the WrestleMania 13 ending, no one's going to give up because their chest is bleeding. It's just not going to happen. So you couldn't even get a finish out of it. So what's the point? But if you just wanted the visual of your chest bleeding because he's hitting you that hard that many times, then just get somebody who can chop you that hard. The thing is, it's not just me talking out of my ass, bro. Like I've cut people before by chopping them. I can do it almost on command, or I used to be able to. I haven't tried it a decade and a half or so, but if you know how to do it, you could do it. And Von Lilas, Serena Deeb, like a couple of people that I've given the 2-week tattoo where it looked like a ghost grabbed him in the titty because I hit him that hard. It's just, you can do it and you can cut people open. It's a technique. Eddie he's not bad at chopping. Like I think he could do it. And Frankie's got that sun damaged chest. So it's real easy to just break it open if you're doing it right. It's not that hard. You can make his chest bleed if you want to, but if you can't, oh well. Like if you're trying to hard way his chest and it won't bleed, oh well, it doesn't matter anyways. Like if he sells it, if he sells the pain, who cares if the blood is flowing out of it? It's just these guys are fucking dumb. They ought to know better, both of them. No, it has nothing to do with fingernails, Retro. No, it's just how you do it. You can do it. But anyway, as I said, none of this has anything to do with the finish, which is of this particular fall. Eddie picks him up with the backpack stunner and runs out to the middle of the ring and hits the move on Kaz. And then Kaz just sits up and puts him in the chicken wing and he taps out. So selling is optional. So there was no reason whatsoever to do the whole chest bleeding spot. If you
Remember
wanted
Abyss used to blade his arms back in the day.
What an idiot. Anyway, let's not talk about that. That guy thought Joe Burrow's better than Joe Montana. He's an idiot. So if and that's why you watch these WWE matches, because he's a producer, and when you're watching these WWE matches, you're like, ugh. It's probably because it's an Abyss match. But anyway, nice guy though, I heard. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, if you wanted to do a thing with a backpack stunner, right? You could have actually used the backpack stunner um to get a fall earlier, right? Like instead of the bossa knee party, you could have hit a backpack stunner and got a surprise win. Like not that it's like a roll up or something, but you hit the move and everybody assumes he'll kick out and he doesn't, and then he can sell it leading into the second fall. Like, oh man, that backpack stunner is the most effective backpack stunner that Eddie Edwards has ever done, and Kazarian is still reeling from it. You know, like you use that as a fall, and then in the second fall you go for it again, and while you've got him up on the shoulder, then before you run and take the bump, then he hooks you. So it's like you're teasing that you're getting a fall. Everybody's already seen him lose to it once. Then he hooks the chicken wing on you before he takes the bump.
Basically, the idea is Frankie let him do it to hook in the chicken wing.
Yes. And he's hooking in the chicken wing because he knows he already got beat by this before and he needs to do something to counter it now. Like, you've shown your hand too many times and I'm countering you. That's wrestling psychology, boys. You know, take it from two guys that are just doing a podcast on Monday night, if you want. But that's how you do those kind of things. And it's things like that and these supposed, you know, industry veterans like these guys. Killer Kowalski, this whole thing is based on Killer Kowalski training. I don't know if Killer Kowalski is going to give him the idea for the finish that I just did, but he definitely knows that you probably don't blade your chest and you probably don't no-sell a fucking devastating move just to get your shit in. I mean, what are we doing trying to use somebody's name in recognition and supposedly to like honor them or whatever if you're just going to undo anything he would have ever taught you? It's a disgrace. It's a fucking disgrace. I bet you Killer Kowalski never bladed anybody's chest or his own in his life. So anyway. Now we're in fall 3, which is the last man standing match. They wait till now to use any weapons, even though I assume that the first 2 falls were no DQ. You know, like if you can only win by pinfall, then I assume that you could use garbage cans to, you know, get that pinfall. Since you can't be DQ'd, but what do I know? Again, no psychology. And as Kazarian hits Eddie Edwards 40 times in a row with that same said trash can, I'm just thinking to myself, all right, where's Lish? Lish is going to come out here, you know. I'm already thinking of the finish is going to involve her, so I'm like, why are we waiting for it? Let's just get it over with, get out here, make it a 2-on-1 handicap match. Why are we even waiting? You know, why would you wait till the very end to, you know what I mean? It's like, what if Kazarian won the first 2 falls and she never would have came out? You know what I mean? It's just like things like those little psychological details that nobody thinks about. So they do like suplexes on the floor. They do suplexes onto guys at ringside who are there to be suplexed onto and no other reason. Seriously, what was that guy doing there? He's just sitting in a chair so that he could have Frankie Kazarian thrown into him. At first I thought it was the timekeeper. Like, did you knock the timekeeper down? And then I watched the timekeeper on the next table over just sitting there calmly while this guy takes a bump. Yeah, so a lot of more garbage stuff. Literal, you know, we have a trash can, right? So I mean, and then like cookie sheets too. Like they got cookie sheets in 2023, Brandon. We're still hitting people with cookie sheets. Like, is somebody baking stuff at ringside? Like during the commercial breaks? Like, are we giving the audience cookies? Like, why do we have these?
Maybe if it was a muffin tin.
At least that would be different. And if it was full of muffins, then the muffins could go flying into the audience and then they could catch them. You know,
And it says
kind of like when the
Mindy's
New
on
Day
it.
would throw pancakes. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Because it's a cookie sheet and it has no business in a wrestling uh, ringside area, like there's really no reason you would have a cookie sheet there. You understand tables, you understand chairs, you understand tools, you understand some of the things that they keep, a fire extinguisher. I'm sure that that's probably not the best place for it, but you know, you never know. It's nice to be safe. Um, so understand that cookie sheet, there's no reason for it. So what that means is that in preparation for this match, you could stock weapons under the ring for storage to be used later in your match. That would be the idea, right? If this were real, it means that either Eddie or Kazarian or both are taking things that they're bringing from outside and they're stowing it under the ring so they can pull it out later. So, hey, how about this, guys? Can I suggest, if you're going to do this, if you want to go with the baking theme, how about one of those glass casserole dishes or something? Like, those hurt a hell of a lot more if you're trying to kill somebody. How about a crock pot? How about anything but a flimsy cookie sheet that has no reason? Since we're cutting ourselves, how about some cleavers? Let's bring a cleaver out there. Or how about a butcher knife? Or is Steve the only one who gets cutlery around here? Like, is there a rule? He's like, hey guys, you know, knives and forks, and mostly forks. That's my gimmick. You know, maybe you guys could sharpen a spoon or something. I don't know. Yeah, just what anyway. So finally, Lish does come out, uh, and they're putting over that she's got Kendra, and I was like, is it? I thought Kendra had like pink tape on the stick, or like a little bow or something. This was just like a regular one. So it looked like Kenny. Didn't look like Kendra. Whatever. Now I'm really picking nits. So anyway, up on the top of the ramp, Kaz gives Eddie a Styles Clash, and then he goes down to deal with Alicia, and he picks her up like in the sort of the spine buster position and carries her around. And there's a table that got set up like against the stairs at the diagonal angle or whatever, and he basically spears her through it,
He takes the
but
bump, all of it.
he turns it. Yeah, he turns his back to go flying through the table at the last second. Like no one could see that, but so there you go. And then he does the well, I guess the announcers are calling fade to black. You may recognize this as the dead eye that Hangman does. It's like a tombstone where he's just like, imagine it's about to be
Like a reverse tomb. Like think of it as like a reverse. Like if you're giving a guy a tombstone, he's going down your back instead of your front.
Yeah, or alternately, you could think of like it's an Alabama slam that you never flip back over. He just goes
Alabama
straight
slam,
down.
you drop to your knees.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Through the table, which it's impossible to protect the guy on that. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible for him to be protected, but it's impossible to guarantee that everything will go perfectly because you're really not in control of that. If his weight and gravity somehow pull him through, because it's the table, right? Like, if you were doing that in the ring, you're basically taking it all on your knees. So there's that. But if you're going through a table and then you fall through to the concrete floor, there's a chance that the momentum can pull him out of your hands if you're not careful. So
it's almost like you got to have like a nice grip, but just like not just holding his ankles, but like making sure you keep his head like tight between your thighs.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm sure he didn't die because we would have heard about it. So anyway, that is thankfully that is the finish. Like you can't really take much more of a bump than that. Like if that can't put him away, what can? So that is the finish. And as that we go off the air, Tom is yelling that Kazarian had beat respect into Edwards. Did he? I mean, do we know that? How do we know that? How do we know he beat respect into him? I don't know.
Find out next week.
Yeah. What's respect doing here in the Impact Zone? That was the guys busted their ass, um, but it was stupid shit. Like throughout that whole thing, I pointed out the areas in which their psychology could be greatly improved. Um, but yeah, I did not hate it as much as some of the matches that we see that involve trash cans. Uh, but I just wished I just expected better from these guys. I don't know why I expected better from these guys. Maybe I like Frankie and I hold him in a higher regard, but maybe I'm just wrong to do that. You know, maybe he is, as they call them, a TNA original. So why would I expect him to have psychology? You know, it's a company founded on not having any psychology. So all these guys that are still around 20 some years later, uh, still haven't learned anything. Alex Shelley's still not getting it. Frankie Kazarian still not getting it. Blading your fucking chest. Like, well, what do you think about the match? What were your thoughts on the match overall,
Honestly,
or in detail?
I thought this should have been saved for Bound for Glory. Like, if you're gonna build this for as long as you have, why are you not paying it off at your biggest show of the year instead of a main event of a random Impact?
I'll tell you why if you want to. If that's not a rhetorical question, I'll tell you why they did it.
Let's hear it.
Because they want to make sure they have enough time for it. Bound for Glory is probably already going to be long, so they don't want to have a 2 out of 3 falls match taking up 35 minutes of a 3-hour show. So in order to make sure that they have enough time to get in all the shit they want to do, they're giving a TV main event because it's a taped show. If they need to edit stuff out of it to fit time in, then they can do that. So they're much more control of this match as a TV match than they would be if it was to be live, with a bunch of other stuff that has times they got to hit. That's the reason why they did it. But that being said, you traditionally would pay something off on a pay-per-view. So there is that. But so I'm not saying that I agree. I'm just saying that's why they did what they did. There's a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong in this match that would cause complications in a live setting. So they can give these guys the time they need to have the match that they want to have. And then if anything else happens, they can fix it in post and trim it down or cut something else from the show to make sure they get the whole thing in. That's the reasoning.
I guess.
Anything else on it?
I mean, it was a decent match. Guys worked hard and they didn't do anything crazy or stupid.
Well, they did the stupid thing, the chest blading and the
Oh yeah, well that, yeah.
and the Deadeye through the table was pretty crazy. But they only did one thing each. I guess it depends on your definition of stupid. Cookie sheets.
Like now, maybe like if it was a hardcore match that spilled to the back and they're in catering and they're in the kitchen, they start using cookie sheets. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your weapons should always be environmentally based. Like wherever you are, you use something. And if it's a real object and not a gimmick, then just work it, you know? It's not that hard. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know why wrestling has to be so complicated. Like, why do they go so out of their way to make everything so fucking fake? Like, everything is fake. Even when it's real, it's fake. Even when you're slicing your chest open with a razor blade, it's fake. Because you're telling me that Eddie Edwards busted him open. but you have to cut yourself with a razor to bleed. Because Eddie isn't good enough to chop him hard way. So even when it's real, it's fake. It's just so fake. Everything's fake.
Or if you wanted to do that spot for real, Frankie's got to suck up, be like, just chop the shit out of me till I'm bleeding. That's the only way you're going to get that spot over like that, how it's supposed to, and have it make sense and be real.
Well, he didn't do it. So I'm disappointed. Killer Kowalski is spinning in his grave. But, you know, we can only do what we can do. We can put it out there in the universe. And if you subscribe to Channel Attitude, it will live forever. And then maybe in a time capsule, someone will find these digital shows and they will listen to it and they'll look back on a time in wrestling where two people had all the answers and no one was listening. And it was as simple as just listening to Brandon and Vet, and the whole industry could have been saved, and Moose could have been on top, and it would have been glorious. But sometimes I feel like we're just shouting in the dark. So, but at least we are shouting to people that understand and appreciate what we're trying to say. And so thank all of you guys for being here with us as we cover this. Let's see, how would I grade this mediocre treading water show? They're just killing time till Bound for Glory. I feel like nothing is really being set up in an interesting way. And then like on the next show, the go home show or whatever, it'll just be a bunch of stuff like, oh, here you go. This is happening. And if they do set up something, then it's just, who cares? It's like, Jake something's number 1 in the Gauntlet Battle Royal and Dango's number 20. Like, you took 2 weeks to set that up, and it doesn't matter because neither one of those fucking guys are winning, I guarantee you. So, okay, even the stuff you set up, it doesn't matter.
At the very least, though, with Dango, you have the whole thing storyline going with him and Bravo and Oleg Prudius or Vladimir Kozlov, or whatever they're going to end up calling him during this run. At least you have that to branch off of, regardless of how Dango does in the match.
Yeah, and then what? He can lose to Josh Alexander or something? Like, what are you going to do with this guy? When was the last time he was even in a ring? This is just like Santino bringing in a friend for a payday? Is that what this is? I haven't followed his career after WWE, double E, so I don't know what he's been up to, but no offense against the guy. I'm looking at it just in terms of like, what am I supposed to think if I'm just like a fan or whatever watching? But, yeah. So in general, I just don't feel like a lot of exciting business is done here. But, and no Moose whatsoever on this episode, like not even barely a mention, if that. The announcers may have mentioned in passing, no appearances, no backstage, no match. So fuck off. This guy is the number 1 contender, at any moment for the world championship, but we don't need him on the show. And then you have, they said, find out who thinks they're Will Ospreay and is going to step up to Mike Bailey. Oh, well, it's Samurai Del Sol, I guess. Like, wow. Amazing. You just shoehorn that in there too. Not even a little package of him answering the challenge. Like, it's like, hey, Mike Bailey, I hear you're looking for some, quick 30-second 80s wrestling promo. Not even that. Just next week, Mike Bailey and, like, hey, we found him for you and we're going to make the graphic right now. Like, fake. Again, fake. Not exciting, not interesting.
Or even better, have it do it all on social media. Like, have Bailey put out the challenge on the show. Ospreay responds, or whoever responds on social media. They announce it on their Twitter or whatever, and then you have it set up for next week.
Nah, We're not doing that. Graphic. That's how. We're going to have the announcer tell you minutes later and a graphic. So I mean, that's the level of it's like, why bother even having Mike Bailey do a promo? Why don't you
Right.
just have Tom say, Mike Bailey's looking for opponents and we found one. Like, that's all you know, don't even waste our time with his fucking promo then. If you're not even going to show Samurai Del Sol on the screen or have him walk into the interview and challenge or whatever, like, if you're not going to do any of the cliche wrestling shit, then don't bother doing any of it at all. Just have the announcer just say the whole thing. Hey, this match is happening next week. Why? Who cares? You're going to watch it or not. See you later. That's the whole thing is that's what Impact does. They're just like, they put way too much effort into some things, not nearly enough effort into other things. There's probably a lot of stuff going on that we don't understand that we could give them the benefit of the doubt on. But there's some things that they do that there's no excuse. I don't care what the excuse is. It's just not done properly. Whether that's something that happens within an actual match or whether that's something to do with the booking and lead up to a match, there's always those things where you're like, there's no excuse why you couldn't have done this differently. Some things I do get. You may have had to do a last minute change and cover some stuff up. I get that. That's going to happen. So, you know, for anything that happened that we've talked about, you know, oh well, our bad. But there's also plenty of stuff that's not like that. So,
Yeah, again, we kind of go into the kind of preview of like, okay, we don't know what's going on, and we're just going to kind of be like, okay, we're going to try to adjust our thought process around that.
right. And for anybody that's actually loyal enough to watch Impact every week and also ends up listening to our show or whatever, I hope it gives them a different perspective on how what they're seeing either works or could be done differently. The perspective. That's all we really want, is to give the fans a perspective. The fans of HMG, we want to give you guys a perspective that's different, that you're not going to get from listening to people that don't really know how this shit is, like the Meltzers and the Kellers and stuff. They just think they know. So like, we have to set ourselves apart. We have to offer something different that you can't hear on the 8 million other podcasts or shows out there. So that's what we're trying to do. Hopefully you guys find that entertaining. And hopefully you will join us next week for the same thing. We're going to talk about Bound for Glory, their biggest show of the year, their WrestleMania, and we're going to see what they do with it. And I'm already dreading it just because that means I have to watch it and I don't want to. So they've made me not want to. That's their build to Bound for Glory, is I don't want to watch it. So granted, I'm a little harder to please. I know that. On the other hand, even in the past, they've had some shows where I've been like, oh, I want to see a couple matches on here. I ain't getting any of that this year. So there you go. But in any case, that's going to do it for this episode of the Impact Attack and our coverage of the October 12th edition of Impact Wrestling. Brandon, do you have any final thoughts on the show or anything else you want to say, or anything you are looking forward to seeing next week that they could correct?
Man, they could be doing so much more. Like, I keep thinking back to like Bound for Glory 2010, like that whole big angle going into that spun into multiple matches. Like, why can't we see that level of effort put into like building to this show?
I don't know. G'day, Piers Austin. The great Piers Austin has joined us just in time for us to close down the shop. So I'm glad we got to say hello to you so that we can say goodbye. Brandon, what do you got going on? What is up with Twitch? Tell us what's where we can find you and what you're up to.
And you can find me on the usual places on Twitter/X at TransArchisTia. I'm also at twitch.tv/Miss Tia the Transarchist, and we are also on Substack at HMG Brandon.
All right. That sounds like a good time. As for me, you know me, I'm all over HMG, whether you like it or not. So, as of this recording, this Monday on the locker room with Ben Hameen, going over some stuff, talking some things, and some, wrestling news and other stuff. So, definitely check that out if you haven't got a chance. Um, and then you've got every Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, with the Next Level Wrestling review. And that's myself and Big Ray Hernandez. And we talk about NXT, which is bad in a different way. Then you've got the Sunday morning wreckage, where we sift through the wreckage after the collision. And as AEW is struggling, we're covering that in real time and seeing just how quick they can tank something like, let's say the debut of Edge.
Man, that it is. It's so disappointing seeing like the numbers that AEW is putting out, because anybody who really cares about wrestling and wants to see it succeed wants AEW to do well. And seeing this is just it does not help that at all. Seeing their numbers, their attendance, it's
a little much.
That Wembley number, or what they sold at Wembley, that I think that really got in their heads big time and made them cocky.
Well, even so, I mean, they should have known it doesn't necessarily translate. And, as Pierce points out, Edge has never performed in front of a crowd that small since his time on the Indies. Yep, it's true.
And when was the last time
some of those were bigger?
And when was the last
time?
I said
that too. I said the last time Edge was in front of that few of people, he was on the Tony Condello Death Tours.
But I said, when was the last time he was in front of a crowd like that? The 90s?
Yes. That's literally when it was last. And even then. But I mean, even besides that, the everything he did from the moment he got there has been the shits. So, what can you say? That's a whole other show. But yeah, so if you want to hear us talk about how bad everything is over there, or where they do get some things right, then check out Wreckage with the PWC boys, Jimmy T and Chris Ames. And then we got, of course, Chris Windland has been doing some work over at the PWC, doing reviews of Fastlane and some other, some shows, and so check that out. Check out Chris Windland, yes boy, over there working with the PWC fellas. That's fun. What else can you check out? You can check out Wrestling with Rip Rogers. You guys like fucking wrestlers on Netflix? Then you're gonna want to see this episode, because now we've got Hollywood Haley J sitting in with Rip and Vaughn. That's right, Von Lilas, the guy that I busted open with a chop hard way, unlike fucking Eddie Edwards, you piece of shit. You got Hollywood Haley J with the guys for an hour doing an interview, and I won't spoil it for you, but you can learn about the first time Rip met Haley and exactly what he did in that meeting. That is fucking hilarious. So check that out. It's on YouTube now. Wrestling with Rip Rogers. Every Friday they got a live Q&A, noon Eastern, concrete time, except when it's not. And free to subscribe. So go over there and do that. Check out Stevie Rich's wrestling analysis. Everything he's doing. Too much. You're doing too much, Stevie, because I can't keep up with all this. I don't have time to watch all your videos. I did, however, watch your newest video where you broke down the Kurt Hennig Mr. Perfect knee lift, and how it was so good and so well perfect. So that's his newest video, available on Stevie Richards Wrestling House YouTube channel. And of course, he's got his own fitness channel where he's doing a review of the Total Gym right now, and he's got his podcast, which is a Big Fitness Show, Big Mike Barris. Steve Richards is, you can't stop Stevie. He's gonna no sell everything, all of his physical setbacks, just like Frankie Kazarian no sells a backpack stunner. So definitely give Steve Richards a check out, and of course, the great Piers Austin, shooting the shit uncensored, and all of his shows over there on the Piers Austin network. Go check him out. That's what's the latest thing here? We've had such guests as Todd Eastman, Cowboy Chris Abbott. So you get these in-depth interviews and guests and everything like that, in addition to just his his what do you call it? I know Piers does, well, not only does Piers jump on with us and talk with us every once in a while, but he's, besides shooting the shit uncensored, which I've appeared on, but he's also got this show that he does weekly. It seems like he's got his regular guests too. So definitely check out everything Pierce is doing on his network. Former Impact ring announcer Piers Austin. Yeah, I guess that's all the plugs that we have time for, or that we have left to give. So for Brandon, I have been the vet. You've been a lovely audience, and I don't have a sign off line.